Joining our webinar. We're so happy to be having you to talk more about course registration. For those of you who I haven't had a chance to talk with just yet, my name is Christy Flood and I work as the Director of Student Recruitment in STU's Admissions and Recruitment Offices. But more importantly, as I always say, and I will say it till the end, I'm a very proud STU alumna. So I came to St. Thomas from the Boston area, had tons of different post-secondary options in my backyard. But St. Thomas really spoke to me, the smallness of the campus community, the extent to which you had faculty and staff looking out for you, and the opportunities to take different courses and subjects that I was really passionate about. That was so rare to me. There were so few institutions I was looking at that had the types of courses that really spoke to my interest in different social responsibility issues, but also offered some academic rigor that I knew would prepare me well for future studies and for the workforce. So I'm so happy to be having you join us at St. Thomas University. It's a very special place. And for those of you who haven't visited our campus just yet, we hope you're able to do so before you get here in September, either virtually or in person. We would love to show you around and just get you a little bit more familiar with what your surroundings will be like when you join us at St. Thomas. So before our program begins for tonight, I just wanted to acknowledge that the land on which St. Thomas University is gathered is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqey and Maliseet people. And with that said, I do want to mention as well that for those of you who have joined us for other webinars, virtual events, etc., tonight's going to look a little bit different. So for this Q&A and for other Q&As that we have throughout the summer as well as the spring, the format is a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more casual. We don't have a presentation. There's nothing set that we have to say to you. We had last week's course registration webinar to ensure that you had all of that basic information imparted unto you. If you haven't had a chance to watch it just yet and you weren't able to join us live, no problem at all. There is a recording available. If you actually look on my screen, you can see stu.ca/register. That's our hub for everything course registration related. And right towards the top, you can see this link for our registration webinar. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that just yet, be sure to do so. Tonight, however, is really aimed at answering the specific questions you have. Now we're a couple of days into course registration, so we have some courses that are already filling up, and then we also have some students who aren't even sure how to access their accounts to find what courses have filled up. So we want to kind of even that playing field, ensure that everybody is given all the tools they need to succeed and answers to their questions. So with that said, all of tonight's content is going to be based on the questions you submit. So I would ask you folks to start submitting questions that you have, and we can start answering them. So for those of you who have been in touch with our admissions counselor team, we have Muchinetta and Louise in the background. So they're two fellow STU alumna, and they're here to answer any questions that we're not able to address just talking through this presentation. But please keep those questions coming, because we really want to ensure that everybody leaves here feeling empowered to register themselves in courses if they haven't already. But if you already have made your schedule, we want to ensure that you're given the tools to look over your schedule, review it, and feel really confident that you made the right choices, or that if you want to change things around throughout the summer or even in the fall, you certainly can, and we want to ensure that you know how to do that. So with all of that said, I will give you folks just a little bit of a rundown of our stu.ca/register page, so you know exactly where you can find some resources. But before we even go into the page itself, I will just make a call out for the emails that you've been sent. So we've been sending you some emails throughout this process. We actually started doing so late in March just to familiarize you with the terms, with the dates that things would be happening, all of that. But the most crucial points of information have been sent within the past week and a half or so. So if you've seen those emails come in and you haven't had a chance to review them and read them just yet, please be sure that you do so, because there's really important information in there. And if you're finding that it's overwhelming or that some of the terms or jargon within the emails is just totally losing you, that's normal. It's all new, and we know that it's a lot of information at once. So please take a look at them and then make a list of questions based on those emails. If you don't know what something means and it's kind of stumping you, let us know. You can email me back. You can email your admissions counselors. We're all happy to help kind of break everything down so you know exactly what to do. So with that said, I will take you folks to the stu.ca/register page, which you can see right on your screen. And as I mentioned, this is our hub for all things incoming student course registration. So everything that we know is crucial for you to know and to keep in mind throughout this really exciting, but also definitely overwhelming in some cases process is on this page. So here you can see a link to Stu Self-Service, and I'll just explain exactly what that is. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to go on to Stu Self-Service just yet, that is our course registration platform. And it's something that is definitely worth familiarizing yourself with at this point, because you're going to be using it throughout the duration of your career at St. Thomas. It has a lot of useful information for you when you're a current student. So it's where you can access unofficial transcripts. It's where you can access tax forms and your pay stubs when you get an on-campus job. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. But I would argue the most important part for you today and for the rest of your degree is going to be the course registration functionalities that it offers. So this is the primary reason that you're going to be using Stu Self-Service at this point in your Stu career as you get things underway and started. So be sure to take a peek at that, and we'll go into exactly what that will look like in a little while as well. As I mentioned, next to the Stu Self-Service button, we have a registration webinar. So there you can access a recording of last week's live event and ensure that you get a feel for all of the tidbits that we wanted our students to know before they went into the course registration process. I was fortunate enough to be joined by Allison Bellier and Kelly Hogg, who are two of our academic advisors, and they are wealths of information that have a lot of different information that's available. So with that said, we're going to go a little bit further down the page. So we have what to know before registering for courses. This little microsite is really helpful just to get your confidence boosted before you actually commit to any courses, before you start registering. It breaks down things. So for example, you see a course code like SOCI 1006. What does the 1 mean? What does the 6 mean? That page will break it down for you. And I will say, just to get everybody on the same page right now, the first digit of a course code, so in this case 1, always connotes the level of study that's associated with that course. So for our incoming first-year students, we want to ensure that you're primarily, if not exclusively, taking courses that start with a 1. And the last digit, so in the example of SOCI 1006, which is 6, that would connote whether the course is a full year course, and a 6 credit hour course is what a full year course would be. So 6 equals full year, or a 3 credit hour course, or in other words, a semester long course. So if a course code ends in 3, that would just be a semester long course. There's also some information that really breaks down the course registration steps. And this is vital for all of you folks to be familiar with if you haven't yet registered. So we'll do a very quick rundown. It's all written here, so don't feel like you need to memorize it or be taking notes or anything like that. But the first thing that we really recommend that you do is thoroughly go through this website. And I know it sounds silly, but you will have so much more information. And like I said, we really want to empower you to do this right and take some control over your degree. One of the best things about St. Thomas is that we really want to foster your passions and your creativity and curiosity, and you need to drive that, right? So we encourage you to be in the driver's seat for this process and ensure that you've read through all of this. We also want you to browse through course offerings so you have a good understanding of what courses are available and exactly what they entail, because sometimes it's difficult to know what a course is about just by the title. Like Intro to Sociology, for me as somebody who didn't have sociology in high school, meant almost nothing to me. But then when you read the course description, it does become a little bit clearer. So I would be sure to take a look at that and then start choosing some courses you'd like. So just grab a pen and paper, or if you want, you can make a note on your phone and write down some of those courses that have descriptions that speak to your interests and speak to your passions and maybe sound like something that you really enjoyed in high school, or something that you wanted to explore a bit more in high school and perhaps didn't get the opportunity to. And then the next step will be building out your schedule. So this is something that you can do a variety of ways. So you can do it the old-fashioned way with a PDF, either right on your computer, or you can print it out and fill it out with pen and paper, or you can do it directly on self-service. And if you want to do it directly on self-service, that course registration platform to which I was referring before, there is a video that will show you exactly how to do that. So it's really broken down for you. The messaging is specific to incoming first-year students because there's some little tips and tricks that are specific to courses geared towards our first-year students. So be sure to watch that. It will really help you become a master and an expert on self-service. And like I said, that's valuable not just for now, but for all of your years of study at St. Thomas. So definitely worth your while. And finally, what you want to do is actually go on to self-service and register yourself. So it's very straightforward, but I know there's a lot of little steps along the way that can trip people up and get them a little bit stumped. So I want to ensure that I'm breaking those down for you. So if you have any questions, as I mentioned, be sure to pop them in the Q&A because I want to address as many of those as we possibly can. So we also have a few other sites and links that are on this page, stu.ca/register. If you haven't yet gone to this page, I encourage you to do so as soon as possible. So there's some frequently asked questions about course registration that you can go to. If you think you have a question that's strange, odds are we've been asked it before, and perhaps we've been asked it so many times that it's actually made it onto our FAQ page. So be sure to check that out. It may even preemptively answer some questions that you don't think you have or haven't yet thought about, but once you get into self-service and are building your schedule, they may arise. There's more course descriptions and course offerings, and then there's that video that I was referring to earlier that will break down how to use self-service. And finally, we have a bit of a breakdown of our first year Great Books program courses. Now, the reason why we have a specific call out to these programs is that it's offered quite a bit differently than the first year courses associated with other programs outside of Great Books. So the first thing that I'll answer is just about Great Books and what those intro level courses look like. So for Great Books, there's 2 different intro level course offerings available to you. And the first one is a little bit more complicated than the second. So the first one is called the Aquinas program. And this program is very unique within Canada. It's actually somewhat unique throughout all of North America. There are some programs that are similar within the New England area, but it's truly one of a kind in the region. And it's something that we take a lot of pride in. So what's different and unique about it is that it actually combines 3 of your intro level courses: Intro to English, Intro to Philosophy, and Intro to Political Science in a way that's done completely seamlessly. So you can't really tell when you're doing English or when you're doing political science or when you're doing philosophy because it's all really integrated in the seamless way. The courses are all team taught, meaning you have 3 professors, but again, they kind of seamlessly weave in and out of the discussion. And the nature of the course is that it is very discussion based. So rather than having lectures or what we commonly see at St. Thomas, which is some lectures with some group discussions and some entire class discussions as well, Aquinas is all discussions all the time. So really the way that your professors are leading the courses is through that Socratic method of asking questions to the class and having the classmates kind of pose their answers, but also pose further questions to their classmates and colleagues. So it makes for this very collaborative, inspiring learning environment. It really gets people more comfortable with public speaking and their communication skills. And there's some more practical benefits as well, right? So firstly, all of your assignments are coordinated between your professors. So you have 3 of your 5 courses and all of those assignments are coordinated. So there's not going to be overlap or anything like that. And you also really get to form a strong connection with your professors as well as your colleagues, because you're with them doing these discussions for 3 of your 5 courses each semester in your first year. So you spend a lot of time with one another, and your faculty members really get to know you. They get to push you a little bit harder in the areas that they know you can improve upon, and they help all of those superpowers that you have really shine and help you learn how to accentuate them. So it's an absolutely amazing offering. If you're thinking of a different first year experience, that's certainly something worth considering. So that would be called Aquinas Great Books. And as I mentioned, it would be English, philosophy, and political science. So if you go on self-service and you see Aquinas English, you're not able to just take Aquinas English alone. If you take that, you necessarily have to take Aquinas political science and Aquinas philosophy. And as I mentioned, that's for a full year. So essentially, you're taking 6 of your 10 intro level first year courses through the Aquinas program. So that's why I say it's a little bit tricky. It's not just a standard intro level class that's either a semester or a full year, but it's really an amalgamation of so many different courses. Now, if that is something that you're interested in, but you have so many other courses that you're hoping to take, you can't quite accommodate it in your schedule, no problem at all. There's also a course for you. So that's called Great Thinkers and Writers. So that's the intro level Great Books course that's available to students. It is structured more like a typical intro level course for scheduling purposes, meaning that it's just one full year course. I believe this coming year, it's going to be offered Wednesdays and Fridays from 9 to 10:20, if I'm not mistaken. And that's, April, or rather September through April. So that's a good option, again, for those who are interested in Great Books or Aquinas, but don't quite have room to fit the entire Aquinas program in their schedule. There's still the same elements of discussion of looking at these classic texts as well as modern texts and trying to better understand what they say about humanity and how they apply to the current state of the world and to us as human beings. So awesome offerings, but definitely a little bit tricky. So if you have questions about those or you're interested in them, let us know. So I can say that we have a question about journalism. So I'm going to take a look at exactly what that question looks like. So it is saying, I want to do a journalism major. So along with journalism 1113 and journalism 1023, I want to do communication and policy studies. There is confusion between choosing A and B for this. So this is a good question. What I would recommend for anybody who's interested in studying journalism and they have some room in their schedule, I certainly would recommend also consider taking some communications and public policy courses. Those programs work really nicely together. We often have faculty who teach between the two departments. So again, there's a lot of kind of synchronous planning and thinking between the two programs. So if you're thinking of journalism and you want to do some communications and public policy, what we would recommend you do is Intro to Communications in your first semester. And you could take either section of this, so Intro to Communications A or Intro to Communications B, but you would only want to take one of those sections. And then you also in second semester could take Intro to Policy Studies, and the same would go for that. So you could do Intro to Policy Studies A, or you could do Intro to Policy Studies B, but you wouldn't want to do both because essentially that would be the exact same course twice and you would only get credit for it once. So that is something that we often get confusion about, and you can certainly ask us more questions. So I'm getting another question about communications and public policy. So this question is, can I do communications 1013A in first semester and communications 1023B in second semester? And the answer is absolutely. So just on that note, I will break down those course codes a little bit more because I think they're worth breaking down because they cause a lot of confusion. They're not something that people always understand, and they're really important. So when you're looking at a course like communications, Intro to Communications, so COPP 1013A, for example, the 1013 kind of denotes what level of study it is. So in that case, it's a first year class because the course code starts with a 1. And it also indicates that the course is only a semester long because it ends in a 3. The A connotes what section the course is. So just to back up this discussion, what is a section of a course? So a section basically just means that because we cap our courses at such small numbers, we often offer the exact same course several times throughout the semester or throughout the year. The section is what differentiates whether that course is offered at a certain time or it's offered with a certain professor. So in other words, COP 1013A is the same type of content as COP 1013B. However, they would be offered at different times and with different faculty members leading them or teaching them, in other words. So you'd only take COP 1013A or COP 1013B because they're the same courses, but they're just offered at different times. So in this student's case, I would recommend them to take whichever course 1013A or 1013B fits their schedule the best in first semester. And as far as the Intro to Policy Studies course goes, I would offer the same piece of advice. So you could take COP 1023B if that works well with your schedule, or COP 1023A if that works well with your schedule, but you wouldn't want to take both. Now, if you're wondering for communications, whether or not you can take COP 1013A and COP 1023B, you absolutely can, because they're two completely separate courses. They're semester long, meaning once the semester is over, that course is done. So you don't have to worry about being in the same section of it for the next semester, because you've already finished that course. Now, what gets a little bit trickier is if you're taking a full year course. So earlier in this discussion, we talked about Intro to Sociology. So that course code is SOCI 1006. If you take SOCI 1006A in first semester, you need to take SOCI 1006A in second semester. And the reason behind that is because, as the 6 connotes, it's a full year course. So you need to be in the same section for both semesters, because otherwise you'd have different professors, you may have slightly different assignments, you may have completely different textbooks, it may be offered at a different time. So you would want to ensure that you're sticking with that. Now, I will say, when you register in a full year course on self-service, as long as you start by registering for it in the first semester, it being the self-service platform will automatically register you in the second half of that course for second semester. So there's nothing that you need to do to ensure that that happens. That will automatically take place. But if you have any problems, glitches, questions, just let us know. So I have somebody asking if they can take Political Science 1013 in first year and LAPS 1003B in second semester. So what I think they mean is, can they take Law, Power, and Politics in their first semester, and if they can take Law, Politics, and Society in their second semester. And yep, that's absolutely okay. So Law, Politics, and Society is rooted in political science in many ways, but it is a separate course, so that would be all right. And we have some questions about textbooks, which is an exciting development as well. So people are wondering where they can get their textbooks for the year. So I have a lot to say about that. I know it seems like something that would have a really easy, straightforward answer, but like so much of this, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So in terms of textbooks, we would always recommend hold off on purchasing textbooks. And I know it's difficult to resist this temptation as somebody who gets very excited about academic work, as you can probably tell. I would definitely want to rush and get my textbooks as soon as I registered for courses, or as soon as textbooks for courses were listed and available for us to see. But the reason why we strongly discourage you from doing that is because we often have students in the first couple of weeks of classes decide that they want to change their schedule around. And as I mentioned, even if you're taking the same course, so in the earlier example, COP 1013A, but you change the time to COP 1013B because it works better with your schedule or the rhythm that you've developed living in residence. You could have a different textbook for that course, just at the different time with the different professor. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing is, you may go to a class and realize that a discipline isn't what you thought it was at all. So going to my original example of sociology, I started with an Intro to Sociology class, but I didn't have anything comparable to that in my high school. So I was really unfamiliar with it. And fortunately, I went to the first class and got an understanding of what the discipline was, got my syllabus, and absolutely loved it. But you know, there are some students who see something, they think they have an idea of it from either the media, from high school, from a friend, then they get to class and realize, like, oh shoot, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. That's normal too. It happens all the time. And with that in mind, we actually allow students to change around their courses within the first week and a half or so of classes each semester. So we encourage you to go to class. If you get the syllabus and you realize, like, this is just not for me, or maybe there's something that concerns you, you think, you know what, I can get up for this 8:30 a.m. now when it's really warm and sunny, but when it gets a little bit cooler, I don't think that I have that in my soul. That's fine. Be realistic about what you can do and change around your courses before that add drop date. So like I said, that's usually within the first week and a half of classes. So with all of that said, because we have so many students change their courses within the first couple of weeks, we would not encourage you to buy textbooks until you are set on your schedule, you've been to all of the first classes for each of your courses, and are confident those are the courses you actually want to be taking in your first semester of study. Now, when you get to that point, there are a few different ways that you can purchase your textbooks. So we do have a university bookstore that would pre-order any textbooks associated with courses. So that's a really convenient option. It's very close to all of your main academic buildings. If you're living in residence, I would say it's downhill. So it's about a 5-minute walk there. And I would say like a 10-minute walk back, depending on how adept you are at walking hills. But that would be a really common, easy way to purchase your textbooks. We also have some Facebook groups that allow students to share used books with each other. Sometimes they are charging them and reselling them, and sometimes they're just giving them to other students if it's a textbook that's kind of been passed around in the past. So that would certainly be an option. And then we have some students who really bargain hunt through online options as well. So all of those ways would be viable ways to get your textbooks. But the main piece of advice I would say is do not purchase them until you have gone to your first class for each of those courses and are sure that's what you're going to do. So it looks like we have a few more questions about textbooks, which is exciting. I can sense the enthusiasm you have for the courses you've selected, and I love it. In terms of how much they cost, this is something that we're asked each and every year. What we encourage students to do is to budget 1,000 Canadian dollars for the entire academic year for textbooks. Usually that is a little bit more than what the vast majority of students are going to be spending, but we would rather have you budget too much than too little. Oftentimes, especially if you're buying used textbooks, you can even rent some textbooks through the university bookstore. You can defray costs quite a bit and ensure that you're not spending quite as much money on your textbooks. So there's a lot of ways to cut down those costs, but if you budget for 1,000 Canadian dollars for the academic year, it's highly, highly unlikely that you're going to go over that. So it looks like we have some more questions about courses. So this question is there any problem if we register in a course in which the time is yet to be announced? So there's a couple of things going on with this question, and I encourage the person who asked the question to send us a follow-up if there's a specific course that you're referencing, just so we know exactly what you're looking at and can ensure that we're looking at and referencing the exact same kind of situation. But usually if there isn't a time announced for a course, what that means is that it is an online asynchronous course. By asynchronous, we mean that the course is offered in a way that is fairly self-paced. So students are able to access material for the course at times that are convenient to them. This is something that's really beneficial for our students who are joining us from across the globe, especially because we work with students in tons of different time zones. Some of them may start their studies online, and having those asynchronous online options is really nice because they can access a lecture in their home country without having to stay up until 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. their time to get that content. The way that they're usually structured, and there are variations of this depending on the professor and depending on the course, you usually would have these different modules that are weekly, and that designated module would often become available on a Sunday or a Monday of a particular week. And then you would have until Friday or Saturday of that week to watch the lecture, engage with any course content or material, and then do any assignments that are associated with that weekly module. So that's often how they're structured. Like I said, there's some variation, but usually if you're seeing a course with a time to be announced, that's what it means. Now, if you see a course with a staff to be announced, the way that you can discern this is it will just say staff where other faculty names usually would be. That's totally normal and not something to stress about. Basically, the different faculty members are getting updated and uploaded into our course registration platform self-service every single day. So there's a lot of fluctuation, there's some changes, updates, etc. And this can happen through to the start of classes. So say it's August 30th and you note that one of your courses still says staff. That's pretty unusual and a bit of an exaggerated example, but say that happens, you have nothing to stress about. There will still be a faculty member for the course. It's just a matter of ensuring all of the systems are updated with each and every faculty member teaching each and every course, because that does vary from year to year. So we have a few more questions about journalism, lots of journalism enthusiasm tonight, which is awesome. So this question is, can you mention 2 to 3 courses which go well with a journalism major? So The long and the short of it is that we really, as I mentioned before, want to empower you to choose courses that speak to your interests. And I'm not saying this because I don't have courses that I'm really passionate about and that I want to share my enthusiasm for, because I certainly do. But really, we find that our students perform the best when they take courses that they have a genuine interest in. And only you know what that is. We can certainly give you more information about courses if you think it might be something you're interested in, but aren't quite sure you understand it. But we really want to ensure that you're taking things that get you excited. Now, with that said, if you're thinking of doing a particular major such as journalism, the major thing that we would encourage you to do is take the intro level courses associated with that program of study. So in this case, Intro to Journalism, which would be Fundamentals of Effective Writing, and then the Message. So Fundamentals is offered first semester, and Fundamentals and the Message are both offered second semester this coming year. So those would be great options for you if you're thinking of journalism. But as far as the 8 other courses you take, it really doesn't have to be anything related to journalism. It certainly can be, but the beauty of a liberal arts education is that we want to foster well-roundedness in our students. We don't want you to only see things from one narrow disciplinary perspective. We want to create critical thinkers who are curious about the world and have that intellectual curiosity that is contagious and palpable. And we can't do that if you're only seeing things from one really narrow lens. So don't feel like all of your courses need to work really closely together, because they don't. And sometimes it's even better that they don't. I also will say that oftentimes what happens is you'll take 5 different courses that all seem fairly unrelated, but throughout the semester, you'll realize there are a lot of parallels and shared points throughout the different disciplinary perspectives. Or you might see things from very different viewpoints depending on the course that you're in, but you're looking at the exact same current event. And it's really exciting to look at these different current events from different disciplinary perspectives with different lenses on. So I wouldn't want you to get too caught up in ensuring your courses are all closely related. With all of that said, if you are thinking of journalism and you're looking for courses that might also pique your interest if you're thinking of journalism, I certainly, as I mentioned before, would recommend Intro to Communications and Intro to Policy Studies. We also have really robust Intro to English offerings. So we do have an Intro to English Literature course, which would be a full year course that's available to you. But we have another offering that can sometimes even better speak to aspiring journalists' interests, and that would be digital literacy. So that's a course that you would be able to take in both first semester if you wanted, or second semester. It's only 1 semester long, so you could choose either one. And you would really have some work that closely relates with the field of journalism in a multitude of ways. So that's something that's worth exploring. But with that said, you can make anything related to journalism if you want to. I mean, think of it. Journalists cover subjects and stories from all over the world with a variety of different perspectives. So for example, we have business and economic journalists. So if you wanted to take economics or business, that can relate to journalism. If you wanted to look at health, you could take some sociology or gerontology or psychology courses. If you wanted to cover things like world events and world issues, I would encourage you to look at some of the political science offerings. So there's really a multitude of options that could work with your interests. Feel free to talk with us after, and we'd be happy to kind of get a better sense of what you've enjoyed throughout your high school career thus far, and let you know what may work well at the university level based on those interests. So the next question is, what is the minimum number of courses to register in to be considered a full-time student? So this is a great question, and it's something that confuses a lot of students because there's a lot of variation and fluctuation within this. But to be a full-time student, you would want to be taking a bare minimum of 3 courses per semester that are worth 3 credit hours each semester. So in other words, you'd want 9 credit hours each semester, which would be a total of 18 credit hours for an academic year. That would be the bare minimum to be a full-time student, but I would strongly discourage students from taking that few courses for a few reasons. The first reason is if you have any kind of academic scholarship, the vast majority of them will require you to be in at least 24 credit hours of coursework between September and April. So that would be equivalent to 4 courses each semester. If you're doing only 3 courses each semester, then you are bound to be losing your scholarship. No matter how well you perform in those courses, you're not going to be meeting that 24 credit hour requirement. So you definitely want to avoid that. The other things that you may want to keep in mind is that all full-time students pay the same amount of tuition. So whether you're taking 3 courses in a semester or 5 courses in a semester, it's the same rate. So it's not very cost effective to only be taking 3 credit hour courses each semester. So we would discourage students from doing that for that reason as well. There can be some other implications to taking that few courses. So if you're thinking of taking fewer than 5 each semester, which is what we would typically recommend, I strongly encourage you to reach out to me or your admissions counselor, and we can talk through exactly why you're thinking of taking fewer courses and what the pros and cons of doing that may be, just to ensure that you're making an informed decision. At the end of the day, it is ultimately your decision. So we're going to support you no matter what, but we just want you to know what all of the ramifications to that decision may be before you actually finalize it. It's a very good question and something that we often get asked about. And sometimes we get asked about it too late. So after a student has already taken too few courses, and then it's a little bit more difficult to fix things at that point. So you're asking it at the ultimate right time. So in terms of English for second language, this is something that we've been getting some questions about as well. And it certainly is, again, something that can cause some confusion for students. So we always want to be ensuring that you know what your next steps are there. In terms of English second language, so if this is something that you are qualified for and you actually have to take as a condition of your acceptance, then we certainly can help you get into those courses. The number one piece of advice I would have is ensure that you email me or your admissions counselor if that's the case, and we can kind of connect with you in terms of what exactly your next steps will be. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't qualify for ESL, or in other words, you're not required to take it as a condition of your acceptance, there still can be opportunities to take ESL courses. But again, reach out to us. We can kind of put you in touch with the right people, ensure that it's the right decision for you, and get you set up so that's all taken care of and is stress-free. But don't be trying to register yourself in it. That can cause some confusion and concern, and we can help you through it. So just reach out to me or your admissions counselor, and we'll get you to the next step. So it looks like I have a question from a returning student. So some returning students have reported different difficulties or issues registering for first-year courses, and this is normal. So I won't bore you with the details, but there's some system processes that take place when you've already been to St. Thomas that will preclude you from taking or registering in first-year courses. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't take the first-year course. It really just depends on how many courses you've taken at STU, what your individual situation is, all of that. So if you're in that boat, again, reach out to us, because every situation is different. And I don't want to be cavalier and say like, oh, it's no problem, you can take first-year courses, we'll put you in them, just let us know, because there is a limit to how many first-year courses you can take. So if you've already taken a great many in the past, we're going to want to steer you away from doing too many more. So reach out to your admissions counselor or me, and we'd be happy to help you either get in touch with academic advising if it's a bit more complicated, or if it's a really straightforward situation, we can do some work on the back end of our system to ensure that you're able to access all of the courses that you should be able to register for. So that is looking like it for our Q&A right now. What I would encourage you folks to do is send any other questions that you have, because I want to ensure we get to as many as possible. We still have a bit of time left if there are any other questions, but I will mention the past few days I have been working with incoming students on course registration, which is such a joy. It's so exciting to see these students who we've been talking with actually start planning for their future at STU, and not just an abstract way, but in a very concrete material way, getting excited for their academic futures. It's just such an honor and privilege to be a part of. But with that said, something that's come up very commonly in all of these meetings and school visits and discussions and phone calls is that there's a lot of confusion about how to log into that platform that we were referring to earlier called Stu Self-Service. And it seems as though there's a couple of things that people are commonly doing that is not allowing them to register. So I just want to debunk those and ensure that you know actually how to register. So if you are logging on to Stu Self-Service, the number one most important thing to keep in mind is that you need to do so using your Stu credentials. These are not the credentials that you use to log into your applicant portal. They rather are the credentials that live on your applicant portal that we issue to you upon offering you an offer of admission. So you want to take a peek at your applicant portal if you don't know what your Stu credentials are. And if you don't remember how to get onto your applicant portal, fear not, we can get you there. So if you go to stu.ca/apply2023 and you just click start your application, it will take you to our application portal. From here, you can log in. This is the same portal where you got your acceptance letter. It's where you would have accessed the next steps page for your residence application, etc. So it's where most of what you've done for Stu to date lives. You're going to want to log onto here and then hit next step. So that will be right towards the top in your toolbar. Or if you're on your phone, it actually will kind of take over your whole phone screen. It will be a green toolbar and you want to click next steps. Once you're on next steps, I find some students don't scroll very far, scroll to the very bottom of that page. From there, you'll be able to see your Stu network credentials, and they will look a bit like gibberish. So the network username that you have is a 5-letter username. So HFKNP, for example. And then your network password is going to be a unique combination of numerical digits. Those are the credentials that will be your keys to everything Stu leading up to your time here and once you're at St. Thomas. So the application portal is one thing. That's where we're able to give you those Stu network credentials. But for every other Stu platform, you're going to be using those Stu network credentials. And that includes going on to that Stu self-service page that we were referring to earlier. And once you log on using your network credentials, the Stu self-service homepage will look something like this. This is where you'll know that you were able to log in successfully and that you're able to get to where you need to be. Now, if you're having a hard time logging in with your Stu network credentials, something that we've seen a lot of students do is add @stu.ca to the end of their username. While you will do this to log on to your Stu email, you do not want to do it to log on to Stu self-service. So make sure that you're not typing in @stu.ca, but rather the username that you're using for Stu self-service is just that 5-letter username. So for me, HFKNP would be my username, nothing else. And then you would just use that network password, that's several digits that is on our applicant portal. So from there, you're able to kind of see everything, but what I would strongly encourage you folks to do is kind of go here. You can take a peek at courses, search course catalog. And then once you've done that, you can follow the steps in that video that are posted on stu.ca/register to get you all registered in your courses on Stu self-service. It is a really straightforward platform, but if you're having a hard time, don't feel embarrassed. Don't hesitate to reach out to us because you feel like, oh, they said it's pretty straightforward. Because honestly, we know that when we were in your shoes, this is a ton of information and it can be really confusing and overwhelming. We are happy to help. We would much rather you reach out and ask for help than just suffer in silence, wait for your courses to all be filled and there not be any room or capacity for you to join. So that would kind of be my piece of advice there. Just don't hesitate to reach out to us, no matter what you're wondering about. And the final thing that I will leave you folks with that we should start keeping in mind, which is wild to say because we're only 2 days into course registration, is that I would strongly encourage you to register sooner than later. So we are already seeing some of our courses filling up, and it's not just in one disciplinary perspective. We have some history courses filling up. I've seen some criminology courses filling up, some psychology courses filling up. So We have some fine arts courses that have filled up. There definitely are courses that no longer are having capacity, and that's just not even a full 48 hours into the course registration process. So the sooner you're able to register, the more likely you are to get all of your first picks of courses. So there's no time like the present. And again, if you find something is holding you back, whether it's a mechanical, logistical problem, registering with self-service or understanding, or maybe you have a hesitation, you're not quite sure about St. Thomas or the way that our courses are structured or the way that our academic programs are structured, we are here to help with that as well. So don't hesitate to reach out to our team. For those of you who haven't emailed us yet, our general email is admissions@stu.ca, but you also can go directly to your admissions counselor, whoever they may be, based on the region that you're in. If you're not sure who that is, then you can always just try admissions@stu.ca, or you can always email me. I've emailed every single one who is here right now, and I know you have my contact information. My name is Christy Flood, and I would be more than happy to help you through this process, which is so exciting. So with that said, I'm going to let you folks get going with your course registration. And if you do have any questions or problems or concerns, please give us a shout. We always love hearing from you, and we're really excited for you to start your academic careers at St. Thomas University. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's been lovely talking with you and seeing all of the questions that you have. It really speaks to the caliber of students that we have joining us this coming fall. So take care, everybody, and don't hesitate to be in touch. Have a wonderful night, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be. Take care, everybody.